Hello YouTube viewers and random Doctor Who fans. Yes, it's almost killed me, but I'm back to finish off reviewing the 3.75-inch scale Series 7 figures, and I've saved the biggest for last. It is, of course, the Ice Warrior, and here it is in its packaging, which is identical to all the other figures' packaging in this range, so there's not really much point talking about it, is there? It shows off the Ice Warrior and its accessory very well, lots of other toys on the back, legal garb, blah blah blah. Let's move swiftly on and take a look at this figure. Alrighty, so here we have the Ice Warrior, and for a 3 3/4 inch figure, it is quite large, but more on that later. Taking a look at detail, I'm pleasantly surprised, as the Ice Warrior armour offers the sculptors a chance to include various sections cut into the plastic and raised pieces to achieve a striking look, and for the most part, it's paid off very well. The facial section has been well represented. You can see the orange 70s sunglasses style visor there, with the flat nose panel in between them, and below, the mouth section is visible as well, and has been painted a different shade of green. On the sides of the helmet, you can make out these lizard-esque scales, which have actually been cut into the mould, while this series of ridges runs from the top of his head and down the back. The torso looks pretty awesome. Running down the middle of it, there's another series of raised ridges, which has been given a faint coating of gold to really make them stand out, and this offers a great dynamic to the overall look of the figure. The sides of the torso offer more of that scaly effect, while the lower sections have much smoother parts, with a few oval designs engraved into them. The arms give us more of the scale effect, while the forearm is covered in a series of flat panels, and of course, the figure includes the updated Sontaran style hand with 3 fingers, as opposed to the Lego Man style clips which the Ice Warriors originally had in the classic series. The back of the torso looks exactly the same as the front, just with a bigger series of golden green ridges running along the base of his spine, giving the suit a crocodile or alligator style appearance. The legs contain more golden green ridges on the front and back, and the sides are covered in more of that scale effect. The feet are quite basic, and underneath we get the box standard legal club trivel, along with a peg hole on each sole. So overall for detail, it is very nice, but the paint apps really push it over the edge. It's fantastic. Turning to articulation, the head can turn left and right, but can't do the full exorcist twist, as it's restricted by the shape of the collar. At the shoulder, the arm can spin through 360 degrees, and can also be raised to 90 degrees as well. There's also a 90-degree bend at the elbow, but there's no wrist articulation whatsoever. We also get no waist articulation, and there's very limited articulation on the legs due to the shape of the torso's mould. The leg can't kick forward, but can move back to around 45 degrees. It can also move out to 45 degrees, but can't do the splits, and bizarrely can spin through 360 degrees. Weird. And of course, there's also a 45-degree bend on the knee. So overall for articulation, it's good, but could have been a bit better. For accessories, the Ice Warrior is given the standard DW insignia base, present with all of the other 3 3/4 inch figures, except for the Dalek. Again, I really wish these bases had been given their own personal touch, so this one could have had the scales and ridges section on it to really set off the Ice Warrior when it's on display. Alternatively, it would have been great to see some sort of weapon attachment or even a cattle prod as an accessory. Maybe even an interchangeable head which could be popped off and replaced with an open helmet design to look as though the suit is empty. I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you would have liked to have seen as an accessory for this figure. Doing a size comparison, you can see that the Ice Warrior towers above the other figures in this range, which of course makes sense as the character is bigger than all the other characters in the actual episode. But here's an issue. Standing next to some of my other 3 3/4 inch figures, you can see it fits in perfectly, while the others do look slightly out of place. This is because the Ice Warrior is actually 3 3/4 inches, and all of the other figures have been made smaller to accommodate for the size of the Ice Warrior. So the Doctor, Clara, the Cyberman, and so on aren't actually 3 3/4 inches. They're slightly smaller, and the only reason the figure line can get away with being called 3.75 inch scale is that only one of the figures in this line is genuinely 3 3/4 inches. I thought the Doctor figure felt a little too small when I first opened it anyway. That's a crushing disappointment right there. Not only are these smaller than the 5 inch scale, they're not even 3 3/4 inch scale. They're not any proper scale. They'll be riding in the streets. So, overall, what do I think of this toy? Well, I really like it. I'd say that this is one of my favourite figures from this line, behind the Cyberman and Dalek, of course. The detail looks excellent, the scale and ridge pattern covering the armour has been recreated well, and has actually been carved into the figure instead of just being painted on. Speaking of which, the paint apps do well to save this figure from looking like a dull green plasticky nightmare, as the gold really brings out the ridges and makes it look so much better. However, the inside of the torso is hollow, making the toy feel really light and really cheap, as though it was bought from a pound shop. So I really wish the torso had been made from solid plastic to give it that heavy bulk of a monster feel which it possessed in its episode. The articulation isn't great, and what is up with those leg joints? But hey, it's better than nothing, which is something character could quite easily have given us, so be thankful for small mercies, eh? As with all of the other figures, I yearn for a 5-inch version of this toy. The 3 3/4 inch line hasn't been received too well by fans, but I'm sure that's not going to stop character from making more in the future. And now that I've actually discovered that the figures aren't even 3 3/4 inch scale, but actually a little smaller, that's made me even more disappointed with this range than ever. And so that does it for this review. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, there are countless more reviews online. Thank you again for watching, and remember to keep following the nerd. Goodbye.